Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucks Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Friday, March 14th, 2025. Hope you and yours are having a wonderful week. As always, follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Get those questions in. Questions, comments, concerns. I will take them all. Better chance to super chat. You'll get it right to the top of the queue, and you will be heard here on the program. Real quick, I will not be on live next Friday because the next Friday, the Valspar is going to be here at Innisbrook. And my parents will be in town, so I cannot wait to be with them. Every year they come down for the Valspar. I know they're jacked up about it, and I know you are too. Another great weekend ahead. I'll be on the call today for USF in Maryland on ESPN Plus, 6:30 today, and then tomorrow as well with my buddy Ryan Urquhart, and then Sunday on the radio side as well. So USF and Maryland, that's where I'll be this weekend. Hopefully you guys can check me out there. Getting a little bit better every day. Thank you, David Terry, for the comment. Getting a little bit better every single day. Wasn't on air Wednesday. I was dead to the world. There was nothing I could do to be able to get on air with you guys. I couldn't even pick my head up off the pillow. Again, it was that bad where Tuesday, I didn't watch the Lightning. I didn't watch USF. I could not do anything. I was down for the count. There was nothing that I could do, but I'm back, baby, and I'm ready to go. Big show, as always, here on the program, and we're going to start right at the top talking about the Rays Stadium saga, the latest there. What the hell is going on? We'll break it all down here momentarily. At 12:30, Evan Closky, my guy from Channel 10, WTSP. Evan's been all over this. He and Aaron Parsegian, they've done such a great job over there at 10 Tampa Bay, keeping you abreast of all the latest news when it comes to the Rays Stadium saga. So Evan and I have been going back and forth about this for a very long time. So he joins us at 12:30. He was originally going to join us at 12:15. But after I listened to the interview yesterday with Matt Silverman on the drive with T-Kraz on WDAE, I needed some time. I needed some time myself to be able to pontificate and to be able to articulate my thoughts on hearing from the Rays for the first time after Stu sent out that message saying that the stadium deal is done, it's cooked, it's nixed. So we'll talk about that here in a bit. Erik Erlendsson, because I was off Wednesday, he's going to join us today at 1 o'clock. What is going on with the Tampa Bay Lightning? Signs of struggle? Are we worried? I think they may be kind of going through those dog days. I mentioned this with Ed and Cini yesterday. You hear about the dog days of summer for baseball. I feel like this is the dog days of spring for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Riding high, playing well, getting the acquisitions of Bjorkstrand and Gord. A little bit of a come down. Cooch not playing. I think in a way this could be a blessing in disguise because as long as they're peaking at the right time, they'll be in good shape come playoff time. At 1:25, Coach Jim Macaluso, an absolute living legend from the King High baseball team, 50 years there at King. This is his final season. He's going to be coaching in the Saladino Tournament this weekend. You know how important that is to the Bay Area. And this is why it's so frustrating when it comes to baseball here in Tampa Bay. Don't tell me it doesn't work. We have the best high school baseball tournament in the freaking country. Coach Mac is going to join us on the program. Can't wait to talk to him. And how about our UT men's basketball program? Coach Linc is going to hop on at 1:45 today. The fellows, they have made the D2 NCAA Tournament for the first time in over a decade. So Coach Linc, he played with the big dog, Glenn Robinson, back in the 90s at Purdue. I want to talk to him about that and also being a part of a Spartans athletics program that is just, listen, badass. Baseball and softball crushing it. Men's basketball crushing it. I mean, there's just a lot of good things going on. Hockey's crushing it. We know the soccer. Like, there's just so much good stuff going on with UT Athletics. So Coach Linc is going to join us at 1:45. All right, let's get into it, and we'll hop off of what Jake is saying here. What's up, Jay? Pretty disappointed in the way Stu has handled everything. Unfortunately, this is the treatment we have to expect from him. I don't disagree. All right. So yesterday, Rays president Matt Silverman hopped on with Tom Krasnicki on the drive over on WDAE. And I want to start by saying, if you are in this business and you cannot give credit where credit is due, and you come off as petty and petulant, and you're just constantly trying to take shots and not trying to give people credit and not trying to big them up, that says a whole hell of a lot more about you than it does them. I will never shy away from giving people their flowers or telling them they do a great job. And Tom Krasnicki is one of those guys. One of the biggest voices that we have here in Tampa Bay when it comes to sports, and he was the right guy to be able to be behind the microphone for this interview with Matt Silverman because he stayed on him the entire time. An interview of damn near 24 minutes with the Rays president, the first person that we've heard from the organization after the announcement made on social media yesterday from Stu Sternberg that the Rays were pulling out of the stadium deal. Now, you're going to hear a lot of just bold lies and inaccurate information when it comes to, oh, wow, the guys at DAE, the flagship, they don't hold people responsible. I know it was something that I did. I know everybody that I worked on the show with, whether it was Ron or Ian or Zach, we definitely did not shy away from not taking shots, not making it personal, but also talking about the things that needed to be talked about. I don't think Pat and Aaron do that, and I'm sure as hell know that Tom doesn't do that. They're not pulling any punches. So I was tuned in. I know a lot of people here in the Bay Area were. I saw that, like our guy Mike Cairns and Spectrum. I know Evan Closky from WTSP, again, is going to join us at 12:30, all showing love to Tom, and deservedly so. I think he did a fantastic job, and I implore you, not right now because you're here with me, but I implore you when the show's over today to go check that out. Tom's going to be live at 3 o'clock today on WDAE, going even further. But I'm not going to play the audio for you here, but I'm just going to take some of the excerpts out, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents. Now, one of the first things that Matt Silverman said during his interview with Tom Krasnicki is that the Rays felt bad that this happened. And it just, does it feel like that? It doesn't seem like any tears were spilt that this deal didn't go through. I mean, God bless Matt for being the cleanup crew here. Because I want to tell you something right now. The fact that Stu Sternberg wasn't the guy that did the interview with Tom Krasnicki yesterday is just an absolutely inexcusable decision. You are the person that put out this statement to say that the stadium deal was done. It wasn't the Rays as a group. It wasn't just a no-name type of thing on social media. You put your name to this thing, Stu. This is your flagship radio station. This is the afternoon drive host. I don't care what was going on yesterday. Stu Sternberg should have been doing this interview with Tom yesterday, not Matt Silverman. Because everything that Matt had to say yesterday, he's not speaking for, he can't say the things that need to be said because he's not the one signing the checks. Matt's talking about somebody else's money. Matt's the president. If Stu had a bug up his ass and said, Matt, you're fired tomorrow, that's it. Matt's done. He's out of the deal. He doesn't have to worry about this anymore. He wipes his hands clean. Wow, I don't have to do that anymore. Matt is the ultimate defense attorney, and I include Brian Alden in that too. These guys are the ultimate defense attorneys. All they're doing is going around, being the cleanup crew, cleaning up Stu's mess, adjusting the narrative, making sure that these type of things are massaged so that it becomes more palatable to the community and to the fan base. But people are seeing right through all of this. And again, a lack of just acknowledgement and just a lack of awareness. There's such a tone-deaf response when it comes to the organization and how they deal with the community and how they deal with backlash. And one of the things that Matt said at the end is that he said, you can just hope that the feelings fall away. and that we can focus on the regular season. You can't keep doing that as an organization. You can't keep doing these things that harm the community, that harm the fan base, that turns people off to your product. And then just say, all right, well, we're just going to we're going to retreat into the shadows, and we're going to let the play on the field do their thing. Let that build up some goodwill, and then try to operate as if nothing happened. You can't do that. You can't hope that the feelings of the fan base dissipate, that they go away. People don't forget. You can't act like this to a fan base and think that everything's going to be okay. Stu, you're the owner. You're the person that should have been on the air with Tom yesterday, not Matt Silverman. You are the person that signed off on that social media post. You are the person that is probably one of the least trustworthy people here in the Bay Area right now. You have to stand up and have a conversation. And Tom's the guy to do it with. He's not going to overstep his boundaries. He's not going to be insulting. He's not going to be personal. I'm not being personal. It's not a personal thing. Facts are facts. There's a lot of people pissed off. And when Matt says, listen, I love the energy, and it's a strong bond between the fans and the team, and I understand the anger and frustration. I don't know if you guys do. You can say that all you want. But I don't know if you do, because it's not just about the organ. It's about the specifics. It's about the people making decisions. That's pissing people off. You're turning people away from your product, even though the product on the field is really good. It's just a lack of self-awareness. You may have fantastic business acumen. And listen, if you're Stu, you have to have incredible acumen if you have that much money to be able to buy a professional sports franchise. But I said it before and I said it again. I asked you this on multiple occasions. Do you feel like there's a disconnect between the organization and the fan base? And when he doesn't say yes, I feel like that's an indicator above all else that there is. All right, let's keep going. Matt also said he's going to they looked at this deal with a calculating eye. Looking at it with a calculating eye. The way that you've been operating this whole time with no growth and banking on people in the organization, in the franchise, for the team to get every last drop out of their talent on the pitching side is something that makes so little sense to me. And I just don't understand why all this discussion about we've been working on this for 20 years. And this is the decision that we made because we don't know what the next 30 years looks like. Yeah, we feel the same way in the Tampa Bay area. If you haven't been able to get this done for damn near 20 years, why do we feel like this is the right group to lead us forward? Right? Sometimes the transparency in the certain comments that are made are very revealing. We said this a lot with Dave Canales when he was the Bucs OC. We loved that he was transparent in comparison to a guy like Byron Leftwich, but in week 18, we didn't want to hear, we don't know this team's identity. Nobody wants to hear that. We want answers, damn it. We want this team to stay here. Again, it was never a slam dunk deal for us, Matt Silverman said on the program yesterday. It was never a slam dunk deal. So you're telling me that you had all of those people out at Tropicana Field last year. We went live 2 hours early on the show that day. Everybody was hooting and hollering. Everybody was celebrating that shovels were going to be in the ground in the first quarter of 2025. And now you're going to say it was never a slam dunk deal? You could have fooled everybody, because even the most pessimistic Rays fan that were saying, wait till the shovels go in the ground, even those people were saying, I'm optimistic. Why? Because this is the farthest we've gotten. This is the farthest along in the timeline that we've gotten. And we never got there. Matt also said, it's not closing a door. You may feel like that, That may be the sentiment within the Rays organization. But just listen to Mayor Ken Welch. This is a guy that was so happy to be on the radio that day. This is a guy that's been so happy. This guy has put his legacy on the line as the mayor of St. Petersburg to be the face of this deal with the Tampa Bay Rays. And now he doesn't want anything to do with you as an organization. That bridge has been burned. That's the words that he used. You may be living in the clouds and it may be all rainbows and butterflies and everything's great and it's going to work out. Everybody be optimistic. Everybody be positive. Your number one backer wants nothing to do with you. What does that tell you? Forget about the Rays situation. Guys, listen. Think about this. In your life, you're doing business with somebody. And the one person that's been the face of this deal that you've been doing business with, that guy, not only distances himself from the deal, but says something like, the bridges have been burned. This wasn't amicable. This wasn't, hey, listen, it didn't work out. We wish him the best. There was disdain in the voice of Ken Welch. There was disgust in that voice. Don't tell me this isn't a big deal. Mac continues to say that the Hurricanes were a factor of why this didn't happen. And then, and this is, I think, one of the big points, and I really give Tom a lot of credit here, he pressed him on it. He mentioned the Hurricanes. And then Matt backtracked a little bit and said the delay and the voting was the factor. And then it just like, you felt it, right? You felt it like the Wheel of Fortune wheel, spin zone. Here it comes. They want to push this off to the county and the city. But what about the transparency of the Rays? Hey, we were pushed off this many days because of the hurricane. This is how much it's going to cost. That number's never come out as far as being a legit number. They said it was over $100 million or whatever. But when the local officials looked into it, it was not nearly as much. How come there could never be a meet in the middle? How come there could never be a compromise? How come there never be a conversation about that? It was just like, you disagree. That's all right. This is what we say. All right, show us proof. Crickets. Like, that's just not good business. They're looking for more of an understanding from the city and the county. Why doesn't that go both ways? Matt said we have high standards when it comes to this deal. I ask you guys right here on the Recher podcast today, do you feel like the Rays are an organization that has high standards? Do you feel that? When you think high standards, are the Rays the first franchise that comes to your mind? They certainly don't come above the Lightning. But I'm being honest. I'm not even let's go beyond sports franchises. Let's just go with businesses. Let's go with businesses here in the Tampa Bay area. When you think high standards, are the Rays that business? There's certain things that Matt said that just stuck. I mean, the light bulb went off like, no good. Don't say that. That's not right. It doesn't ring true. You know me. I'm a very optimistic, positive, look at the bright side, glass half full type of guy. But I can smell bullshit from a mile away. 10 miles away. Just be honest. Just be transparent. Just be understanding that people are pissed off. We're going to find a solution in Tampa Bay. Might happen in Pinellas, might happen in Hillsborough. Wait, what? What? Now we're looking back at Hillsborough? I texted Tom Krasnicki earlier today, and I said this. Maybe on the Tampa side, because it was said more than once. And I remember being told, that is a dead argument. That's what I was told. That's a dead argument. So now, the only way baseball is going to work is if we have a split season with Montreal. Baseball in Hillsborough County is a dead argument. And now that's on the table. We had the Ybor plans. We've had the Montreal plans. We've had the Rays, or the Rays will be here. The Rays ain't going nowhere. The messaging throughout this entire thing is just so ass backwards and disingenuous. And like, you can't expect people to forget about what was said in the past. I have a pretty freaking good memory. And when I have conversations with you, there's a really good chance I'm going to remember that for a very long time. And when you tell me things like, it's a dead argument, and then you go on the air the day when that announcement is made and say that Hillsborough is a possibility, whether it's right or wrong, that tells you all you need to know. We're sitting here and you're asking for people to trust you. You're asking people to believe that things are going to get better, that there will be a stadium in the Bay Area. We're going to find a solution in Tampa Bay. I think a solution can be found in Tampa Bay. I don't know if it's with this group. Pretty sure it's not with this group. Does anybody believe it's this group outside of this group? Great question again from my pal Tom Krasnicki, asking about Stu's money problems. And Matt said it's not a financial issue. Again, I hate that Matt has to answer this question. And again, not because Tom asked it, because I think you have to, but because Stu should be answering this question. Stu is the man that needed to be fielding these questions yesterday. And Tom and I had the discussion. Stu, he's trying to get Stu on opening day. Stu better be there opening day. I know he usually goes on air opening day, but he better be there. And I said it before. You've had 2 decades to work on this. Haven't been able to get it done. Why do they think that we trust them, that they're going to make the right decisions to forecast the next 30? You make decisions in life based on the experiences that you have. That's all we can do. Those who don't learn history are condemned to repeat it. You've heard that in your entire life. You don't go to restaurants again after having a bad experience, whether it was the service, whether it was the food, whether it was the ambiance. You're just like, I'm never going back there. Somebody didn't have to tell you. You lived it. You experienced it. As a Rays fan, you're experiencing all of these things under the ownership of Stu Sternberg. And it's negative upon negative upon negative upon just frustration. Why? There's no benefit of the doubt anymore. There's no goodwill. You can't keep hiding behind the veil of competitive baseball on the field to mask everything that's going on off of it. Matt also said the team's not for sale. Plenty of people interested in buying the team. It makes a lot of sense. Saying that the Rays are a good asset, they have a great farm system. I understand that. But I'm pretty sure that all the people that are interested in buying the Rays look at it and go, that could be doing a lot better. That could be a team that isn't muddled in financial turmoil at the bottom of the Major League Baseball salaries. That should be a team that should be at the very least in the middle. Look at the market they're in. Look at how many people are moving to the Tampa Bay area. If I get my hands on that as an owner, as an investor, I'm taking that organization to new heights. Jeff Vinnick did. That's what Jeff Innick did. You're telling me that the Lightning didn't have problems with ownership? Do your homework. There were some Cowboys. You remember those guys? That's hockey. Baseball here could thrive. They could crush this shit. They could be number one. I think Stu gets a bad rap, is another thing that Matt said. He's been fighting to keep this team in Tampa Bay. Stu is about the community and putting smiles on kids' faces. Really? Does anybody really believe that, Matt? Like, honestly, if you have to keep coming on the radio station, that is the flagship, seemingly every year, and defending the owner for the decisions that he makes, obviously there's something wrong there. You got to look in the mirror at some point. The Rays organization have to understand that you may be pointing the finger at somebody, but there's three pointing back at you. Stop pointing the finger at the fans. Stop pointing the finger at the city council or the county commissioners or Major League Baseball or everything else that you can. It's tired. It's an act that everybody is just, they're over. We don't want that anymore. There's such a perception versus reality thing when it comes to the Rays. When it comes to Stu Sternberg, I feel like they're living in bizarro world sometimes. Like there's the grips that they have on reality are not true. How do you think that this is just fan base overreact? This isn't moving on from a fan favorite. This isn't Julian Brisebois moving on from Steven Stamkos. That's a decision that we didn't like, right? Regardless of how it played out, regardless of Jake Gensel and how Stammer and the Predators are playing, regardless of that. That was a business decision. Agree or disagree. But there's a lot of goodwill and there's a lot of benefit of the doubt that Julian Brisebois has built up in the Tampa Bay area, where there were even people that day, and I wasn't even on the air because I was on vacation, but there were people on the air that day, and I was listening to Zach saying, we have to trust Julian. And it looked now with bringing Gensel in, the way Stammer and the Predators have played, even though I think that, it's still, I don't think we're ever going to really know, maybe at the end of the deal, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. But at least people look at that and go, he's got the best interest of the team on his mind. He's got the best interest for this fan base and the community. That's why they go for it every trade deadline. That's why they trade whatever every first round pick until the cows come home, to make sure that this team gets as many cracks at winning the Stanley Cup, to make not just the team happy, but the community and the fan base happy. If you're going to support the Tampa Bay Lightning, that they're going to give it everything that they have from the top on down. The Lightning don't give the fans a reason to get off the highway, a reason to not be invested in the product. Can the Rays truly say the same thing? I feel for Matt Silverman and Brian Ault. I do, because they're just doing their job. And they're speaking for a man that makes a lot of decisions that are heavily unpopular in the Tampa Bay area. They're lucky that they're competitive on the field. They're lucky that they have the right guys in place, like an Eric Neander, like a Kevin Cash, like a Kyle Snyder. They're lucky they have those guys. Because if not, think about how much worse yesterday would have been. So again, I want you to go back and I want you to listen to that interview. Not right now, but I want you to listen to the interview that T-Kraz had on the drive with Matt Silverman. And I want you to tell me, what did you think? Did your ears perk up about the things that he said? when he's talking about Stu and they're talking about the commitment to the Tampa Bay area and they're talking about this deal and they're talking about how Stu tries to put smiles on the faces of little kids in the Tampa Bay area? Not buying it, buddy. Not buying it. And it sucks because I love baseball. I carry this with me every single day. Baseball means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family. That's where I grew up on a baseball field. And when I come down here and I listen to what these guys say, it hurts me to my soul, to my core. Like, dude, you can't believe the things that you're saying. You can't really believe the words that are coming out of your mouth. I feel like Chris Tucker in Rush Hour. The words that are coming out of my mouth? No, I don't. I don't believe that. And I'll say this one more time before we bring our guy Evan Closky in. The fact that Stu Sternberg was not the guy on air with T. Kraz yesterday is a shame. He's the guy that should have been answering those questions because he is the guy that signed that social media post. It could have just been a standard. This is from the Tampa Bay Rays organization as a whole. There's a reason why he put his name on there because he wanted to take ownership as owner of this team with the comments that were being disseminated on social media yesterday. If that is the truth, if that's how you really feel, then Stu, pick up the phone. You go on air with Tom Krasnicki yesterday, not Matt Silverman. The fact that those guys have to pick up the pieces for the decision that Stu makes, that is one of the biggest and most glaring examples of why there is such a distrust between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Tampa Bay community. All right, let's bring him in. Been waiting to have this conversation for the last couple of days. Evan Closky, 10 Tampa Bay. Bro, I appreciate you moving the time back. I just went on like a 27-minute heater right there, buddy.
Yeah, throwing that straight fastball. I love it.
I mean, listen, I just, when you look at this whole situation, man, and I was giving you and Aaron Parsegian a lot of love. You guys have been all over this from day one. I don't, and you listen to the interview yesterday with Matt Silverman. Let's start with the statement first. What was your response when you saw that come out at 11:38 yesterday about the Rays nixing the stadium deal?
It was just kind of like, well, we knew this was coming. I didn't necessarily know it was coming yesterday. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. It actually the more I sat on it, the more it made sense to actually announce it this week, because by the time we can flush this story out, it will be opening day. And the hope is we can all talk about the baseball versus, showing up to the ballpark on the 29th, asking a million questions about the March 31st deadline. But yeah, I mean, just par for the course stuff. Just like, I thought you were going to at least give it another couple of weeks, but okay. All right. Well, we've reached the conclusion of this mess, which for a while now we knew was coming.
I think it's so crazy too, Ev, that one of the guys that has been such a main proponent of this deal, who staked the legacy of his mayoral tenure, is Ken Welch. And yesterday he's like, yeah, that bridge has been burned. Like, man, and you did such a great job yesterday, Evan, with the entire thing. I just, this as well as I do. This isn't business. This is just like personal, like, you know what I mean? If me and you have been buds ever since you've been here in the Tampa Bay area, people see us talk, people see us chop up, people see us have such a great time, right? But if one day we and you like walk by each other and they're like, Jay, what's up with Evan? I'm like, our bridges have burned. I'm never talking to that guy. He's a douchebag. People are gonna be like, whoa, what the hell, man? Right? So in a situation like this, where it's so much more like transparent and on the forefront, I feel for Ken Welch, man. This guy put his ass on the line for this deal, and now he's stuck just holding the rope. Like, I want to do a deal here, but we're not sure as hell not going to do it with them.
Yeah, and I really liked Ken Welch's press conference with the media, and the number one thing that stuck out to me from that was he never has gotten, he says, not even on a napkin, what the cost overruns were and why that was so detrimental to the project. And then he also said with his team, he likes to tell them, hey, we like to solve for X, right? What he says, I don't know what X is. They don't He's like, I've called them up many a time, said, what are we trying to bridge here? What's the gap? What are we trying to figure out? And they have not provided any clarity on that. It has been, he just has been stopped every which way of trying to find a solution. And why would that be? Because the Rays did not want him to find a solution.
Right.
They didn't want the project. That's why the whole thing from the 49-day delay was always a farce of complaining about that, because I understand that it cascaded a bunch of events of maybe their planning. But when Matt Silverman goes on air and says, we were playing with the thinnest of margins, this was not a home run project for us. Like, what are we doing, guys? Like, how, and then you're going to pin it on Pinellas County because they weren't a part of your thin margins. And Mayor Welch, like, he stopped himself because he was getting riled up, and he was like, I have a big problem with that 49-day delay argument. And he's like, he pauses and he says, all I'll say is, if we knew that was a drop dead date for the deal, we would have been there. We would have made sure those votes went through. And that's why he's so upset, because
The
just
Rays
like
weren't
the
even
fans,
there. The Rays weren't even there.
they
That's
weren't.
big.
And that's what I'm saying. It from the very get-go, it was and you got to remember also in that meeting, Brian Scott was saying that he got a call before the delay saying we were trying to, the Rays were trying to figure out how to keep the deal together, which I think was part of why they delayed it, was because also they didn't know where they were and why were they going to give money to an entity on top of where they were to play. But, I think they were trying to cover, the Rays' asses of just being like, they don't necessarily know where the money is right now. So that's a little bit confusing. It's just sad. It's a sad situation. I know Matt Silverman went on there being like, oh, we're going to be creative with finding a new stadium project. We're going to rebuild the trust. It's over, bro. It's over. It just, I said it last night. We've been through the sale. We've been through Ybor City, and we've been through the Montreal plan, and never had the deal been so far down the road that it was pretty much, if you hit the go button, shovels are in the ground, we're all smiling, taking pictures. And to say like, oh, we're going to get to the finish line. No. Am I taking crazy pills? You were at the finish line.
Yeah.
We were there. We were all there. We were all at the press conferences. We were all there. And you told us we were there. And you said, and then Stu tells us, tell the naysayers, try to convert them. Like, this is happening. And then you do this. It's just like, enough. It's like it just goes to show you that it's so funny for a team that is so damn good on the field that I have so many people in my mentions being like, this is the worst ownership group ever. And it's like, well, I find that funny because they're actually really good on the team. But that's the point, is that they've lost so much trust and they have no sort of equity in the community that people don't see that anymore. They don't see what they do in the baseball field. They're just so sick and tired of the lying, the deceit, the runarounds. And from my perspective, me too, for the community, because I'm the one disseminating information from them to the community. And after a while, I feel like I'm being the idiot telling the community stuff, and they're getting fooled, and I'm being part of that messaging. So I don't like being part of that. And I feel like I, along with everybody else in the media, has been used in this process. So I'm not going to do his dirty work, and I'm just going to call it like it is, because now I have enough experience here with dealing with them. And on a personal level, like, they're totally good people. Like, it's just on a business side of thing, it's just, they just lack like emotional intelligence. They just do. They are intelligent, but they lack emotional intelligence. And that's been their struggle since day one.
The trust is gone. Like, that's it, man. Like, that, I'm with you. Like, there's no coming back from that, right? I just
No.
Tupac running in my back. I don't wish death upon nobody, because there's no coming back from that. Like, that's what I think about when I'm going through this entire thing. I'm reading the statement yesterday, and I just go, I don't know how a team that is so good at putting together a roster on the field with limited resources can be so tone deaf with their interactions with the community. And then I listened to Matt yesterday, and I'm taking notes, and I'm just like, I'm looking at this type of thing, and it's like, I think Stu gets a bad rep. Stu's about the community and putting smiles on kids' faces. And I feel like I feel like it's like a WWE thing. Like, I really do. I feel like Stu's the heel, and they're trying to give out these things to pretend that they're the good guy, but they're not. And I feel so terrible for Matt. I don't feel. I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's his job.
Yeah,
he's the
it
person
sucks that
answering
Stu
these
puts him in that
questions.
position.
Like,
but
what?
yeah, he signs up for it.
Evan, you listened to the thing. Like, why wasn't Stu the guy on the air with T-Kraz yesterday? Like, that's not right, dude. You're the person that's making this decision. Ultimately, you're the person signing the checks. Like, why does everybody have to be the pawns in this situation, whether it's Matt and Brian on the race side or people in the media like on our side?
Theoretically, you're right. Like, he should be the one on the phone. But here's the thing. Every time Stu steps up to the plate with a microphone in front of him, he usually says something dumb. I think they're afraid of what he's going to say. And I think he's afraid of what he's going to say because he is also an emotional guy and he will say things off the cuff that don't play well and he'll have to backtrack later on. That's why he puts Matt and Brian, out there to kind of do a little bit of his dirty work because they're a little bit more and it's still BS, but they at least know how to navigate some of those waters a little bit more.
Yeah,
exactly. Versus what Stu does, and that's just the reality is that Stu has been at this long enough, and we have run through many a quotes from Stu about what the hell was that. But even yesterday, even with Matt, I just in that interview at one point. He's talking about the calculus of the deal not adding up. And then at another point of the interview, he's saying, well, financials aren't the issue. It's like, in one interview, you're telling me financials are and are not the issue. Like months ago, you're telling me the area is on an upward trajectory. Stu's out here saying, I wish I would have done this deal 5, 10, 15 years ago. And then after 7 months, you're saying, oh, well, a couple of hurricanes came through and things have changed. And then you don't want to say like, oh, it's not the hurricane's fault. Like you're the ones that claim here to stay. And then at the first sign of turmoil, hurricanes hit, our community needs someone to rally behind. You say, deuce, sorry, the calculus has changed, and I'm sorry that I got to bring up the calculus, but the heart couldn't win. But money isn't an issue. It's like it's all just like there's no clear messaging from them, and they have dropped the PR ball from the beginning of this. And they dropped the PR ball when they had a 49-day delay there to really run with it, and they kind of screwed themselves up, and they cornered themselves, and. I just always like when all this stuff was happening, I just think about like the Saints. The New Orleans Saints were supposed to leave New Orleans. That was the original intention before Hurricane Katrina, right? There were rumors that they were going to go to San Antonio, and Hurricane Katrina happened. The city rallied around the Saints, and the Saints fan base has never been the same since that Steve Gleason block when the community came together and had that moment. And it just propelled that fan base to something that was so integral a part of their homes. And the Rays could have sniffed a part of that and they ran away from it. And that's just like, you either are there to hug the community or you're there to run away. And, it just, for them, I just don't know if they really are here for the long haul to say, you know what, I want to be part of the the rebuild and the regrowth and all this stuff. It's always been a bottom line. What is this deal going to do for me? How's the money going to work? And all the crap about the community, it just falls on deaf ears. It just does.
Rays could have been a galvanizing. They could have used this situation as a galvanizing moment. Instead, they've alienated the fan base with the way that they've handled everything. And I keep looking at this situation and I keep listening to what Matt had to say. And it's a 24-minute interview with Tom. And I'm just like, man, so many times in that, it was just back and forth and speaking out of both sides of his mouth. And it's just like he's covering his ass the entire time there. Because at the end of the day, he is the one that has to answer for why this didn't happen, even though he's not the guy signing the checks. And I want to go back to the 49-day delay. Maybe this deal gets done if the Rays go, listen, we got screwed. The hurricane really did screw us. It was $79 million. Here it is, black and white. Here's, This is where we anticipate the numbers are going to go up. This is where the cost of labor is going up. This is where the cost of materials is going up. This is what we're dealing with when it comes to insurance. Like at least these four things. There's $85 million. This is what we need to do. We can't get this deal done if we're on the hook for 85, even though we were going to be on the hook for overruns and things like that. Can we please amend the deal so that we can maybe slice this pie up in three ways? Maybe we'll take the largest portion of it, but can we do something to make this work? That never happened. It was like, it's going to cost over $100 million. And then everybody was like,
at least,
everybody was like, really? Okay, show your work. Just like high school math class, show your work. And then it was like, yeah, about that. How do you say something like that? You're operating in faith where you're getting over $700 million from local officials. And then something like this happens. And all they want to see is proof. And you don't want to bring the paper to the table? Like, Ev, I don't quite understand how at the end of the day, the Rays can look at themselves and not realize that they were not operating in good faith.
It's because the way that they think and the way that they act are not the same. And the portion is, I always think back to what Richie Floyd said at the city council meeting during the vote for the stadium. He was against the stadium.
Right.
And in being against the stadium, he said, I am very fearful that while they have agreed to cost overruns, I am afraid that in the middle of this project, they're going to come back to the city and they're going to say, well, we can't handle the cost overruns. And then you're put in a position to say, well, are we going to have a half-built stadium here and stop the production and risk what David Tepper did in Carolina, where he just completely strips it down and packs his stuff up and goes? It's like, typically you get cornered, and that's that. And when Matt goes out there and says we were playing with the thinnest of margins, this was never a home run deal for us, I think back to that quote a lot, being like, man, like, what would have happened if a hurricane happened in year 2 of this construction build?
Right.
The Rays would have done the same thing, and they would have left the city on it, and they would have said, the city, you owe us this. And that's my whole point. So I mean, in a roundabout way, and sort of Mayor Welch kind of alluded to this, it's nice to realize this stuff while you're engaged versus being married. And it's nice, maybe in the big picture, that this happened at this time before the deal, because if we got further down the road, all the leverage would have been on the Rays, and they might have taken the community for more money, because they would have been stuck, and there wouldn't have been many other options. So it's just sad that it's come to that kind of stuff. It's sad that you have to think of some surreptitious means. And Welch even added, like, he kind of mentioned at the end of his press conference, like, they're asking for $300 million, and it's like, what for what? And you think about it, like, $300 million, that means you're close to $1 billion in public funds. That's nuts. And that's the stuff that Orlando is touting right now. And it's great when I see press conferences or press releases from today from the Orlando Dreamers saying they got like $1 billion, so on and so forth. I still haven't heard anything from government officials that say they're going to put forth that money. I've heard it from the Dreamers side of things. Yeah. I want to see the officials put their name to it. Hey, taxpayers, I'm going to, $1 billion out of the TDT that's going to you. And then I want those same officials to go to UCF, to go to Orlando City, to go to the Magic and say, we're going to need to pause some projects that you have asked because we're putting it into a baseball stadium. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there.
Yeah, that's not happening. Like, people keep saying Orlando. It's not happening. There's just no way. You are not going to be an organization. You're not going to be a MLB league and you're going to leave the Tampa area. It's just not going to happen because there's too much going on here, and there's too much. Now there's a lot of work. Now there's a lot of eyeballs. Now people are going to look at Rob Manfred. All right, like, Rob, we got to get this thing done. And, I listen to what Matt is saying, and you kind of, all right, we could have our discussions about the posts, are discussions about him kind of like readjusting everything and trying to put a spin on it, because that's what was a lot of that interview yesterday, was the spin zone. But now there's this sentiment from Matt Silverman and the Rays of, well, now we're going to get another job done. We're going to find another way to get this done. Evan, there's no way that this can happen. Like, now all the people that were against you, they'll never be with you. The people that were begrudgingly with you are not going to be with you. You have zero public support. This is like the boy who cried wolf. Like, nobody is going to be supportive. And I hate to say it, but this is whether you want to blame him or not. Like, people aren't going to believe what Matt Silverman and Brian Auld are saying anymore, because they're the mouthpiece for Stu Sternberg. So, like, I just don't see how the Rays will ever achieve a new stadium with Stu Sternberg and those two guys there. Like, it can't happen. They can say it till they're blue in the face, Evan, but nobody's going to back these guys. Nobody's going to believe it. They could get even farther down the road, but I don't think they can ever. They can't. I'll take that back. They can't get further down the road because they don't have the approval. They had everybody, like you said, they were so close to pushing that go button to put the shovels in the ground. It's no way it's going to happen with this Rays leadership group.
Nope. I think the best case scenario for them would be to slink back into like a minority ownership and allow somebody else to take the reins. They sell a large portion of it.
Kind of like what the Glazers did with Man United.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's so ultimately that's like how I can see them staying in it, but not actually being the front of it anymore, because they just pass it on to somebody else who will then deal with the negotiations, who has more faith, who maybe has local roots and can gain a little bit of the trust back. So I think that's maybe the best case scenario for them. But I'm with you. I mean, Mary Jane Castor has spoken with the Rays before. She knows exactly what's coming down the chute, and she's no dummy. So she, Tampa, Hillsborough, they were never offering that much public funds in the first place. They're not going to do it now. No. They're just not. And all of a sudden, I want to see where the billions of dollars comes from Stu to build a stadium when, $600, $700 million of public funding wasn't good enough for you. And then you have the spin zone of, oh, we're just looking out for Major League Baseball. And we don't want them to, essentially saying, trying to pin it on the owners, like, hey, owners, you really want like us to build this stadium when we're going to continue taking revenue sharing from you? That doesn't seem good for business, does it? And it's like, honestly, I don't think the owners really give a crap. I really don't think. I think they want the stadium, and that if they need to give you a little slush money for the revenue sharing, they'll do it because they're about to get this expansion money, and it's chump change to them. So they keep trying to build out this sort of notion that, like, look, we're doing it for the better.
Yeah, they take
the betterment of the
high
game.
Ground, right? Altruistic type of feeling.
It's like baloney. It's like nothing changed in St. Pete's projections in 7 months. It did not. What changed is probably your pockets, your money, what you were able to stomach. But whatever the projections were in St. Pete, whatever you were building over there, I'm sorry, 7 months does not change the projections. Post hurricane, I do not care. Whatever you thought before the stadium was getting built is where the projections are now. It cannot be like that. So I just don't buy it. And that's my point, is that they're out of the cliche sort of sound bites that we all lean into. We've heard them before. We've been down this road. I know the next tier of actions. It's like, you're done. You can keep, you can grasp onto this team as hard as you try and try to, keep it, because owning a baseball team has so much gravitas to it. But if you can't do anything with it, you're stuck. So at this point, I'm sure Major League Baseball will try to do everything in their power to help Stu leverage whatever he's got out there as far as investment groups to get the best price for Stu, because that would be good for baseball owners to get whatever that price is as high as possible to then help the next owner who sells. But beyond that, I'm just going to take it all as word vomit, and I still do expect him to sell, because there's really no logical other option for him to go. And I don't foresee another government official falling in love with this guy either. I just don't, you can't do the things that you've done and then act like, oh, we can overcome it. You just can't. You can't. Not this deal. Maybe some other ones, but you had a deal in place and you backed out. You did, not the city, not the county. You did. You have to own that, and you have to go to your community members and say, yeah, I decided not to build here in St. Pete. I decided not to do a development project that was going to, help the city for 30 some odd years, a $6.5 billion project. Like, yeah, I took that one and I forced the mayor to say, yeah, instead of a home run, this is going to be a single or a double. Like that's on you, Stu. You have to own that.
Isn't it crazy too how Stu was like, yeah, he put that in the original deal, and I think this didn't get mentioned yesterday, but I think this is one of the big things. They had it in that original deal that Stu could own that land around the stadium, even if he sold the team. And I truly believe that's part of the reason why he held on to this deal as long as he did, because he got the city and the county to agree to that. And I think there was a lot of people that were hesitant, like, why did we put that in there? Because that shouldn't be, in my mind, a deal breaker, right? You should just be like, yeah, I don't know so much about that, Stu. That doesn't really make much sense. So he was still going to have, skin in the game, even if he wasn't going to be here. So he was going to be able to have his cake and eat it too. And I think it just got down to the point where it's like he's holding on, and you're holding on to a losing hand, right? Like you just muck your cards, Stu, right? And that's what they did. And now, like they went. I don't even know if they went all in, bro. They're sitting there, and I know my pal Zach used to be chipping a chair. Yeah, you got a chip in a chair, bro, but you can't even afford the ante. Forget the small blind. It's so sad, man. It sucks that we're here. But on the other side, Ev, I said this, and I want to get your opinion before I let you go. I feel like in a weird way, this could be positive because now we can start kind of the reconciliation of like what the next step is. Because it's like you and I both agree, it's over with these guys.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that something will work out in the Tampa Bay area. It seems like there is significant steam on the Tampa side of things, but also there is a project that has been fully fleshed out on the St. Pete side of things. So theoretically, a new owner could come in, and it would not take as long to figure out what the financials, what the build would look like in St. Pete versus maybe what you have to do in Tampa. Right. Either which way, you would hope that a new owner can come in, that they're able to galvanize a group, a city that is ready to really embrace this team the right way, which we have seen, right? I mean, I think the Glazers have done a great job with the Buccaneers. They have a great fan base here. I think that we know that the Lightning do. That's always my thing too, is when people talk about this Rays fan base, you go back to what the Lightning were pre-Vinnick, you would have said the same thing, that the city was never a hockey city, whatever. They had one cup win, and, they hung around the middle to the below average amount of attendance. And now look at them. And what happened? It was that they had an owner who saw a vision to bring the community together, to build around around the arena, and it gravitated people towards the product. And those people exist here. They will show up. I'm not saying it's going to be like sold out every night, but I'm not saying that they're going to be a bottom 5 attendance squad either. They just
give them a reason. Give them a reason.
You just need an owner to prove that you give a crap about them, and that you're going to go into their communities, and you're going to do the things and get in front of people. And there is a little bit of a word of mouth thing that happens. So I think that hopefully down the road we're talking about how in the big picture this was the way that it was supposed to go, and that it worked out for the best. Right now, obviously, it's murky, it's unfortunate, it's disappointing, but the hope is that the Rays are put in the right hands, and that they can be the franchise that this city, be loved by the fans the way that the fans want to love their owners and the team, and repair this relationship and this trust between community and team. Because, the people who I feel for are the players, because the players they work their butts off. They don't want to get traded, but they end up getting traded, and they put out a hell of a product there for all of us. And, the support isn't what it should be. And I don't think that's their fault. I mean, I know it's not their fault. It's a byproduct of some of the stuff that's out of their control. But, I always say when people go like, I don't want to put a nickel into the team and whatnot, I'm always a big proponent of supporting the players, supporting Kevin Cash, Eric Neander. They have this isn't their world. It's above their pay grade. support those guys and understand that you can do both. You can support them, and you can also complain about, Stu and company and how they're handling business. And you got to remember just the fine line between both of those things.
You got that right. Evan Closky, 10 Tampa Bay, Closky, WTSP. Follow him on all social media platforms. It's been fun, my friend. Thank you so much, and have a good weekend. Talk soon.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate it. Anytime, Jake.
Thanks, pal. Evan Closky bringing the heat today. That's what we're doing today on the program. Thank you very much, Stephanie, with the kind words there. Evan Closky doing a great job for Team Tampa Bay. This guy does a great job as well. Erik Erlendsson, lightinginsider.com. Yeah, you, buddy. He's got the Green Day shirt on. He's, he walked this empty street on the boulevard of. Well, I got a point last night. I was going to say empty games, but we've been talking so much Rays in the first hour. It's so tough. I got to change the. I got to get into hockey mode, man. I've just been so fired up about this whole Rays situation. I said this before, and I want to get your opinion on this. I feel like for baseball, you have the dog days of summer. I feel like the Lightning are in the dog days of spring right now, where they have they played well, 4 Nations break, trade deadline, emotion, and then they're coming down in the roller coaster a little bit. Cooch is out. It just feels like they kind of have to tread water until they find their game, until they get closer to the postseason. Do you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And in fact, the late great Martin Fennelly used to call them the sled dog days of hockey season, right? So, and this team, I mean, you look at the history under John Cooper, they tend to do this, right? They tend to have these really good long spurts followed by emotional letdown or whatever you want to call it. And I've been saying this the last few days, that if you look at how they handle the end of the season in these situations after they put together a good stretch, there's only been 2 times that I can remember since 2014 when Coop was first behind the bench that they pushed hard to the end of the season because they were chasing something other than a playoff spot. One was 2014 when they wanted to get home ice advantage, and that was Coop's first year in this format. They wanted home ice. They felt they needed home ice against Montreal. They got swept. In 2019, they were chasing history, league history, with the 62 wins, and they got it, and they pushed for it, and they got swept in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's conscious or unconscious or whatever the situations might be, we tend to see this from this team. And this will once again be my yearly plea to Lightning fans, especially those who like to show up in my mentions on Twitter. And I love you. Do not equate what you see from a game on March 14th and say that's how they're going to play in the playoffs. It just doesn't work that way. It's a different animal. The NHL postseason is so much more different than the regular season. It is the most different between regular season and postseason of any sport that you can find. So does it suck that they're not playing at the level we saw them play in February? For sure, right? And I understand why there's concern.
But it ain't as bad as January.
Well, it's not, and it doesn't mean that. Well, look at the way they're playing right now. That's it. They're done in the first round again. Don't do that. Don't equate one to the other. There's no correlation whatsoever. I say it again every year. If that was the case, if momentum carried you into the playoffs, good or bad, the Ottawa Senators would have run away with the 2014 Stanley Cup because they won, 20 of their last 22 games. Mm-hmm. And guess what they did? They lost their first 3 games of the playoffs. It just doesn't matter. So don't get overly concerned about what you see right now, thinking it's going to matter in April.
One thing that we got to point out is Nikita Kucherov not being in there. I mean, we were talking about the Victor Hedman thing, him being out, but he comes right back. Any concern with Nikita Kucherov being out, short-term, long-term, maybe not even just physically, but mentally, because it seems like there's just a level of frustration with Kuch right now.
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And like he says, I mean, they said that, he was out because he was sick. right? Now, we did see him leave practice on Monday. I don't know if there's anything to it. Coop after the game against Carolina certainly didn't indicate that Kucherov was sick, but that's kind of where we're at with that. But I mean, Nikita Kucherov is such a special athlete. Like, he expects everything to go his way every single time.
All the time.
That's just how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how good he is. So yeah, when it doesn't go his way, he does tend to get a little frustrated. This is nothing new. That we've seen this from him before. The scene against the Sabres with him being benched for the final 7 minutes of the second period with his gloves up on the side of the boards and his arms crossed. It kind of tells you where he's at a little bit mentally. So, but I wouldn't get too concerned. There's a reason why Nikita Kucherov is as good as he is, because he works at it. He works at it very hard. He expects a lot of himself, and he's, as a lot of athletes are, he's an arrogant athlete because he thinks everything is going to go his way. And it doesn't. There's always other players on the ice, but he wants to win. And the work ethic that he puts in to be the best that he can be tells you how much he wants to win.
How about that whole thing with, Coop and Cooch? And I feel like that's kind of part of his genius for John Cooper of like knowing, because he said, just the entire thing, right? He said that they needed a little bit of a reset, that line. He sat Cooch in the past. He did get hit with the puck, but I think he just took that as a moment. It's almost like when I mentioned this yesterday, it's almost like when your kid's crying. Like, he's upset, but he's crying about something else. You're just like, just go sit in the corner. And 10 minutes later, when you cried all out, then come out here and you can join the party with everybody else. I felt like it was that situation with Cooch. And then the way that Coop handles it in the press conference, he's like, just don't read too much into it. And then it ends. It stops right there. Like, it doesn't fester. It doesn't boil. He always has his guys' backs. But I feel like and I had this conversation with Brian Engblom a couple months ago, his X's and O's game has certainly gotten better, obviously, since he's been in the league. But that lawyer mentality, that dealing with the personals, the way that he interacts, that man management that we hear in soccer a lot, I feel like that's where Coop's bread and butter is. And he can handle a guy like Nikita Kucherov and it not turn into a thing that turned into weeks, months, and, maybe leads to like a trade request down the road. It's just, he nips it in the bud. It's a small time thing. And then you move on.
It's his greatest strength.
Yeah.
It's how he deals with players on a personal level. Right. Like, and that's a modern day coach and a modern day athlete. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. I mean, you hear athletes all the time. They want more information. They want to be informed. They want to know. Don't just tell me, go out and do it. Tell me why. Why? It's the why generation. And John Cooper excels at that. The way that he talks to players, because he has a way. We think of the old school styles, right? Like the Mike Keenans, in a lot of ways, the John Tortorella's, even though he's softened up for John Tortorella these days. You can, for lack of a better term, you don't have to tear them down to build them back up. Right. He has a way of getting his message across without putting you down and making you feel bad about it. Right. Whether it's cracking a joke while you're talking about it or whatever else it is, he just knows how to manage people. And, you talk to guys through the years that have played for him and, even going back to his days in the American Hockey League and how he would kind of get that message across without making the player feel bad about it. And he never throws a player under the bus.
Never. Like
10 plus years here, you very rarely hear him say anything negative about a player publicly, right? Even as we in the media try to lead him down a path, he will never take that bait. He will always bring it back to something else that's more team related. And that's just a strength of his. And that's how he's able to, relate to players so well because he communicates with them so well.
Yeah. He'll give grief to the media before he gives grief to a player. That's the reality of the situation. What do you make of the play of the new guys? What have you seen from Gordon Bjorkstrand now that we've had a couple of games with them back with the Bolts?
Well, I think Bjorkstrand is still trying to find his way a little bit, which is not unusual. It's only been, three or four games since the trade. You think back to 2022 and Nick Paul and Brandon Hagel, the difference when those guys came, right? Nick Paul looked like he'd been here for a decade. fit right in and was confident and everything else. And hey, it took Hagel a little bit longer. So some players take longer than others. I think Bjorkstrand is still trying to figure all of that out. I think that's a big reason why Coop has left him on a line with Yanni Gourde, throughout most of, the first few games here, because of the familiarity with each other as they try and get familiar with the system. It's a different case for Yanni. He's, a lot of familiar things for him, not everything, right, but a lot of familiar things for Yanni. I think you're seeing the versatility of a Yanni Gourde. He's not the same player as we talked about before the trade deadline. He's not the same guy, so don't think you're getting back 2021 Yanni Gourde, but he's still versatile. He was great in the face-off circle last night. You've seen him put Gourde up with Point and Gensel, a couple of times here, because he can still provide a spark of energy. That's what he can do. Put him on the wing, put him at center, whatever it is, you can do it. Bjorkstrand, again, I think still trying to figure out the system a little bit. I think he's eventually going to end up on a line with Cirelli and Hagel. I think that's the idea they had in mind when they brought him in. We've seen it in practice. We've seen that line together in practice, but we haven't seen it really in a game yet. The power play, I think they're trying to integrate him into the power play to be that right-handed threat on the left side for Nikita Kucherov to kind of open up the power play a little bit. So it's a work in progress. Usually you kind of look at things around the 10-game mark and see where things are at that point, see where they're figuring it out.
The old 10-game mark, right, buddy? I remember you and I did the math, I think, years ago. We were like, you guys think Blake, because everybody's like, I can't believe this deal did. And I think it was around the Hagel-Cirelli or Hagel and Nick Paul thing. So I think you and I looked at it and it was like, you guys know after 10 games, like Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow did like nothing for this team at all. So you got to give it 10 games.
Yeah, you can't have an instant reaction. We want it. Yeah. Sometimes you get it. Like I said, Nick Paul was coming here. All of a sudden, he was doing between the legs, shorthanded goals, and spinorama passes to Ross Colton. I mean, he felt like his game opened up big time, and he fit right in. Other guys just take a little bit longer. So, they're getting there. Bjorkstrand is not a rental. He's here for another year. Right. So this is not just we're only getting him for 15 games type of situation. So he'll figure it out. He's too good and too smart of a player.
What do we think of defensively? No Radish last night. Anything to read into that? And do you think well, I want to get to the forwards after this, but defensively, how do you think this is going to shake down? Are we going to is it going to be these 7 guys, sometimes go 12-6, sometimes go 11-7? Does Crozier have any way to get into this lineup if not for an injury? Like, is this kind of the decor? Is it set the way it's going to look like, you think, come postseason time?
Well, Crozier's the wild card.
Yep.
He's been such a good partner for Emil Lilleberg, even going back to the time towards the end of the season last year when they were together. I still don't wonder if Crozier is more of the guy once we get to the playoffs, because the cap situation and everything else. I don't wonder if we don't get to that point because that's the one thing regarding the trade deadline that I thought Julian might still address was some depth on the right-hand side for that, because let's face it, you get into a playoff series, how comfortable are you with that bottom pair? If they get stuck out on an icing against Austin Matthews' line or, Sasha Barkov or somebody like that, what's your comfort level that they can get the job done and keep them off the scoreboard? So, but they are what they are. You have what you have. Crozier does kind of be a little bit of an X factor here, but it is not the most comfortable situation from my viewpoint in no matter who it is, no matter who's on that right side, right? Radish has been kind of a power play guy here of late, and he didn't play last night, and McDonough's been getting some second power play time. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle all this once we get to April, because let's be clear on something. They're not in danger of missing the playoffs.
No. What about offensively, Erik? I look at this team and, obviously when we get Cooch back and I think the team starts rolling, will be in a good chance, kind of a good spot here. But first off, I find it a little weird that we get into the playoffs and Connor Geeky's not at some point involved in the mix. And then, what happens with Isaac Howard? What happens with Dylan Duke? What happens with maybe a Jack Finley? Like, I just, as much as it was great to see some, contributions from the bottom 6, after watching that game last night, I just keep thinking to myself, goals are good, but give me some juice. Who's going to give me that juice on that third line? And I just wonder, is it the guys that are on the roster right now, or do they have to dip into their depth, whether it's, again, Isaac Howard or somebody that's playing the AHL? How do you see that whole thing shaking out?
I think you have to be of the mindset that what you have now is what you're going to go with, right?
Are you comfortable with that? I don't know if I'm comfortable with having, and I know they chip in here and there, but I don't know if Chafee Gonsalves, like, if that's good enough for this team to win the Stanley Cup. It's not about competing. It's not like this team wants to win, right? Your top six, I think you can go with anybody. Top defensive guys you can go with. Your goalie, obviously, but then when you get to that third line, and I'm not even comparing them to the last time, they won the cup with that third line, but it's just, are they going to be consistent enough to give the team juice, right? Because even if they don't score a ton of goals, they got to at least be able to have some shifts where you're hemming the puck in deep, you're able to contribute in that way where it's not like, all right, you're flipping the puck out and now you're changing on the fly and everything's just kind of going to hell in a handbasket and you're never in control of the game. Are they difficult enough to play against for this team to make a postseason run?
I think Zemgus Girgensons the poster boy for everything you just said.
Yeah.
He's not scoring. He scored last night, but he's not contributing offensively. And people are like, you got to get rid of him. He's terrible. Why is he in the lineup? He's not scoring. But if you look at the way he plays, there's juice there. He forechecks. He defends hard. He kills penalties. Like, he does a lot of the very minor type of roles that help teams win games. Glendening is sort of the same way. Chafee does bring some size, because at the end of the day, if you look at what you have right now and you think that Connor Geekie is a savior, you can't think of it that way. Right. Isaac Howard coming in, he's coming straight out of college. That's assuming if he does. We're assuming that's going to be the case once Michigan State's season comes to a close. But that's why I think you have to go with what you have now, and that's why Bjorkstrand is going to be so important to the success of this team, because they brought him in as a secondary scorer, to kind of support some of the offense, and the versatility of Yanni Gourde. You can play up and down the lineup, right? It doesn't matter what role he plays. Now, it would be Gonsalves' first postseason, assuming he stays in the lineup, but he's contributing offensively, right? Like, you got on the scoreboard last night. Cam Atkinson, I don't know if he factors into it too much. Great guy to have in the room. He's so positive, and especially with the season that he's had and everything else, he's such a positive influence from a locker room standpoint. But I think the forward group is what you have. Could you inject a Geekie? Yeah, maybe. Could you inject a Dylan Duke? Yeah, maybe. And Jack Finley, 6'6", Logan Brown, right? They signed Logan Brown to that NHL contract. He's 6'6" and brings some size, former first-round draft pick. So they have options down there. But are you going to see those guys at the end of the regular season? Remember, you're limited on call-ups. You can't just call out guys on a whim and insert them into the lineup and see how they look. You have to, you are limited by the CBA and what you can do in calling guys up from the minors. And you have the cap to worry about. And then, depending on how Syracuse's season goes, they're vying for a playoff spot, right? You don't want to raid them and take away that opportunity either, right? So there's a lot of balance going on there. And that's why I think, I think the group that you have forward-wise is what you're going to go to battle with.
What do you want to see over these next couple of games to try to, I guess, have this team right the ship and get back to at least winning on a consistent clip?
Well, the first thing I think you want to see is urgency, some emotional level into the game. Certainly wasn't there last weekend against Boston. Was there for the first period against Carolina. Then it kind of fell apart. Really wasn't there much last night against Philly. Again, a team that could be hard to get up for, quote unquote, at this time of the year. And then they certainly didn't have the right frame of mind throughout that game. So I just want to see that level come up. I want to see the turnovers cut down on. That was a big factor Saturday against the Bruins. I thought that was a huge factor. Again, last night, the puck management, when they were winning games, during the winning streak especially, that's one of the big things that they talked about was how they managed the puck and not turning pucks over. And, Braden Point, the last couple of games, you've seen him try and stick handle through 2 or 3 guys and lose the puck. All of a sudden it's going the other way and you're kind of caught in transition. And, and that put their rush defense under pressure last night. They didn't handle it very well. So, we can talk about defensive systems, defensive structure, defensive play. I think it all starts with puck management, because you start cutting the ice in half for the other team, let them transition quickly on you. That's where this team gets themselves into danger.
No doubt about it. LightningInsider.com. Our guy, Erik Erlendsson. That's a K, not a C, 2 S's after the D. Erik_Erlendsson. Use that promo code JNZ. LightningInsider.com. Get $10 off, not just this year, but every recurring season. What do you got up on the site right now, my friends?
Well, I talked about a lot of the stuff that happened in last night's game. I did a story last week about, how the importance of chemistry in hockey and why it's important for the leaders on a team, in this case, Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough in particular, to reach out to a guy like Oliver Bjorkstrand right away to kind of help create some of that chemistry and put a player at ease before they come into the locker room. So some good stuff. And there's included some good comments from Jeff Blashill. The Yanni Gord coming home, that story's up too. That's having some good play on the side as well. So yeah, a lot of good stuff, and a lot more to come, because this season's going to go on, I think, longer than people think.
Yes, especially right now where everything's all gloom and doom. Oh, this team sucks. They should have traded Kuch at the deadline. You crazy man.
Pray for my mentions, Jay.
Pray for Eric's mentions. Again, support local, support lightninginsider.com. It's a great thing to get, even as a gift for a friend or a family member, for, whatever, birthdays, anniversaries, especially as we get closer and closer to the postseason. Cannot wait. Appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, man. Glad to see you're feeling better.
Thanks, pal. Yeah, feeling much better today, thank God. My knee's actually pretty jacked up now. Don't ask. I'm falling apart here. Falling apart all those years playing softball and baseball and hockey and all that jazz. Elbow, knee, that's like in the old operation game. But yeah, definitely not as sick as I was on Wednesday, where I was pretty much dead to the world Tuesday and Wednesday. And yesterday, a lot better. You can hear it in my voice. It's coming along, baby. It is coming along. All right, again, follow me on all social media platforms, at Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Also, like and subscribe on YouTube. Coming up next on the program, we're going to preview the upcoming Saladino Tournament with an absolute living legend, King High School baseball coach Jim Macaluso. Coach Mac has been coaching in the Bay Area for longer than I've been alive. And I say that because I have the utmost respect for Jim. He is just the freaking man. 50th season at King High School. Derek Bell, Ty Griffin, Saladino Tournament champions in the past. I have so much love and respect for Coach Mac. 50 years at King High. And when you talk about a guy that is on the Mount Rushmore of coaches here in the Tampa Bay area, Coach Mac is one of those guys. He is just an unbelievable guy, just a great dude. And I got a chance to befriend him, got a chance to actually coach against him when I was at Freedom High School. And Coach Mac, when he used to coach third, he doesn't coach the bases anymore, but when he coached third, my God, that guy would give the umpires an earful. He would go at it, man. I loved just seeing Coach Mac do his thing. And now, man, it's so crazy, because all good things, Coach Mac going to enjoy his time and not dealing with these grunts on the baseball field, but King doing their thing. It's just been such a joy to be able to watch him. And I got a great picture. I got to find it. And of course, I like pictures like this. I got to find when I need them, right? They come up and pop up out of nowhere. There's a great picture with me, Coach Mac, Pop Cuesta, and the late great Frank Permuli from after the Saladino Tournament one year. I got to find it, and I got to send it to Coach Mac. He'll join us here in about a minute or so. But again, we'll talk to Coach Mac here. We're also going to talk to the UT head basketball coach, Linc at 1:45 today. University of Tampa against Alabama Huntsville tomorrow. And we're just, listen, this is Tampa Bay, Team Tampa Bay. This is no Mickey Mouse out here. We're going to continue to do great things, regardless of what is going on with some of the ownership of the baseball team around here. But we know with, all the great things going on at USF and UT, the Lightning getting closer to the postseason. And we're excited about the Bucks. I know a lot of people out there excited about what the Buccaneers are going to bring to the table. We had Greg Allman on the program yesterday talking about they're not done in NFL free agency. Hassan Reddick spoke to the members of the Tampa Bay media today over at the Advent Health Training Center at One Buccaneer Place. He seems ready to go. And for all those fans that were worried about what happened with Hassan Reddick last year with the Jets, he quashed all of those issues, saying that it was an aberration. That was the exception, not the rule. I mean, you're dealing with the Jets, obviously not the most well-run organization and franchise right now. They were like, yeah, we'll sign him to a long-term deal. And he's like, no, seriously, I want a long-term deal. And it didn't work out. He ended up playing some games, but we know it's a dumpster fire over there. So I'm not holding that against him. I think he's poised for a big year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, let's bring him in. The living legend, my good pal, Coach Jim Macaluso there from King High. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Jay. Good. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. So grateful that you could join me today. I'm so happy to see you doing well. 50 years at King High. We got Saladino coming up. I know you were listening. That picture, I got to find that picture. Me, you, Coach Pop, and Coach Frank. They cornered me, Coach, one day when I just got in the radio business, and they said, "Are you going to start covering high school baseball?" I'm going to do my best. But man, you've seen it 5 decades now, Coach. I mean, there really is nothing like high school baseball in the Tampa Bay area.
No, and I want to say this before I forget about it. You did a great job covering the high school ranks when you first started out. It meant so much to the coaches, the players, the parents, everybody. You did just a great job, and we still talk about it and still appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. So yeah, 50 years, man, coaching baseball at King High. I mean, it's kind of wild to think, like, you know, you're going for some of these athletes, and now it's the modern day athlete's a different kind of cat, isn't he, Coach? What's the biggest thing you think has changed from when you started to today?
I think there's a number of things that I would rate, like 1A, 1B, 1C. The players have definitely changed. I don't really know the reason exactly, but their temperament is different. The way they compete is different. I don't want to say the loyalty, the commitment, the dedication is not there like years ago, but I kind of got to say that. And what brings it on, I don't know. I think some of it, just my personal opinion, is the kids playing 50, 60, 70 games a year in travel ball, the kids working with pitching coaches, hitting coaches, conditioning coaches, everything. It seems to like, and I don't blame them, it just pulls them in so many different ways, where years ago when you had them on a high school team, they were just honored. They felt it was a privilege to make a team, and they were 150% bought in. And that, like I said, there's a lot of things pulling them different ways. Even mom and dad who want the best for them, it's understandable, you know, want them to go see this guy or want them to talk to this or miss a Saturday morning practice to go to a tryout camp or whatever. It's just so much different on the kids.
You've told me in the past, I'm not going to ask you the same question again, because I've asked you in the past about, you know, that one player, that one hitter. You told me, I know how much love you got for a guy like Todd Griffin and how he was really able to do everything for you guys there with the Lions. What about pitchers? You've had some good pitchers there. If you had to get one out tonight, bottom of the 7th, bases loaded, 2 outs, who's that one pitcher from your time there that you'd put on the mound to get that last out?
Jay, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You know, you mentioned one guy, you leave out another guy, but some that come to my mind, definitely Timmy Cruz, who pitched in the major leagues, pitched in the World Series. Stephen Locke was another one that ended up pitching at the University of Florida. We threw him in a district final his freshman year, and he won the game. Wow. He was just a competitor, a very poised kid. I'd have to put him up there. And then, believe it or not, we had a little left-hander that took us to the state the last time and didn't even end up pitching in college because of academics, wanted to go to academic school. They didn't, but his name was Brian Lee.
I remember Brian Lee, yes.
And that was for a few years where the regional was once a week. You could ride one guy. Jay, he was about 5'9".
I remember him.
Off-throwing left-hander. but he won the district final for us. He won 3 regional games for us, complete games, and then started in the semifinals and the Final Four and won that game. If they would have given us a week off, I really think we might have won a state.
Yeah.
We'd run him out there again.
But he was Harvard. Didn't he go to like Harvard or something like that? Or he went to
Boston College.
Boston, jeez, man.
And we didn't beg, but I talked to his parents about baseball, and I said, you don't know how far guys like that will go.
Right.
Because he knew how to pitch and get, but those are 3 guys that, like I said, come to mind. There's a handful of other ones too that had great years for us.
Coach, Saladino Tournament, and you know how much I love Saladino. It means so much to me, and I know it means so much to you. I want to talk about Tony and Bertha here in a second, but watching you guys win and being on the field when you guys won, and you know, I've known Justice Thompson since he was 5 years old, 6 years old, and to see him and, you know, to be there with you and, you know, God rest his soul, Coach Frank was there as well. And, you know, what do you remember most? You know, Barger and like you had some really good players on that team, but what do you remember most about winning the Saladino Tournament a couple of years ago?
That group of guys come to my mind as really a close-knit group of guys, a really family atmosphere, which you try to do as a coach in any sport on any level. That's one of your goals. But that group, we didn't have to try to do that. They came in as a family, played together, pulled together, cried together, celebrated together, everything. And I think that's really what got them over the hump. And recalling that night on the field, there was just a happy bunch. And not only kids, families. And on our level, it's important too for the families to buy in, for the program to be successful, because they're still living at home, they're kids. So if you can get that buy-in, and again, if you'll recall, all the parents were on the field for the trophy, and they were happy as the kids. So it was a good deal. But that's what I remember about them. Of course, we had some good ones, including Addison, who really carried us.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. One of those, that night I'm sitting there and I'm kind of looking around, and I'm a big believer on you can really tell what somebody means to a group of people based on the joy that is like on their face. And I can't tell you how many, and of course the families were excited, and of course, you know, the players were excited, but so many of your fellow coaches and so many people that were involved with the tournament were so happy for you and your group. And I was just like, that's a guy that's loved. That's a guy that's respected. And I felt so honored that I was there, like to be there in that situation and to just be able to celebrate with you guys there is a moment that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And we're blessed to be able to have the opportunity to have those moments, Coach, because of this tournament, because of what Tony and Bertha have been able to do all these years. And I still see Tony every once in a while at UT watching Nico play. I always go up and shake his hand. And even if he's not, you know, his health isn't the greatest, his son Tiger goes, he always wants to see you, Jay. He always wants to shake your hand. And that means the world to me because, what they've been able to do, Coach, to really shine a light and showcase the talent here is something that, like, we're so blessed to be able to be a part of it.
I agree totally with you. Tony and Bertha and the family, people just don't realize the commitment they made to do this thing for 40-something years. And I want to tell you, Tony does think the world of you.
Thank you, buddy.
And I don't know if you remember, we ran into you at that the Italian.
Oh, we said it. They brought me in late. And they're like, "Hey, I got Joe Urso comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, I got a table for you. You're gonna sit with these people." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care where I sit." And all of a sudden, I sit at this table and I turn around and it's Pop Cuesta, you, Tony Saladino, Sam Militello, and Paulie Russo. I go, if I had to pick a table, this is where I'd be at.
But I know that night, because I picked Tony up and then we were riding back home and your name came up and he just really spoke very highly of you and really enjoyed seeing you. I had lunch with him last week. In fact, we get together every once in a while. And of course, we go to memories of the tournament, which is there's so many. But they, as a family, they've done such a great job. But Tony and Bertha, just tremendous people, goodwill people type thing.
Yeah, we love him. We love him, and any way we can always help out. And our guy Jared Guthrie from 813 Preps has done such a phenomenal job of helping them and assisting them. And Jared has been that guy that right now, nobody puts the highlight on our high school athletes in any sport here in the Tampa Bay area better than Jared. He does such a great job with.
Oh, it is tremendous, and he's, like you just said, he's been huge to the tournament for a number of years, really stepping in and almost part of the family.
Pretty much, man.
Yeah.
What has it been like? I mean, it's been so great to get to know your son. What has it been like to be able to, because I remember when I was coaching at Freedom, I don't think Anthony was coaching there yet. I'm pretty sure he wasn't, because because when I was at Freedom, Ty was still coaching with you. That was before he even went to TC, and Kipper was there. And you were still coaching third, giving the umpire the brief on the field. I love that. But what has it been like to have Anthony out there? It's got to be special to be able to have your son on the field with you.
It's very, very special. And Jay, parents will tell you, you as your kids grow older and they leave home and they get married, go to college, get married, whatever, you don't see them as much. You don't hear from. It's just normal. They have their lives and everything. So I've told everybody the special part for me has been that I know I've got him for 2.5 hours. I get to see him every day. So that's been special. But just watching him grow as a coach, I remember when he started coaching third, and I kid them, they sent me over to first that year. Said, you coach first. But looking across at him, both of us in the coaching box, I would just get chills and just a proud feeling. But now I'm not even at first, Jay.
That's gonna walk across the field, though. That's probably a benefit. I was like, oh man, I got to go all the way to third. And Anthony, I mean, he's probably, if there's going to be an arm wrestling contest, I mean, he's going to win out of all the coaches. Every time I see him now on social media, he's posting these gym pics. I'm like, Jesus, Ant, you're a monster over there.
He's a fanatic for that conditioning. He doesn't miss a day. But he's turned out to be a really great coach. I'm very proud of him, and we'll see what happens here in a few months as far as moving on. Hopefully he'll decide to hopefully we can get the job offered. First of all, him accept it and go from there. I'd be a big part of my life if I could go to a game and watch him run the club.
Right. What went into the decision for this year to be the last one? Because I know you made an announcement about a year or two ago and everybody thought you were going to announce your retirement. And then you pulled the old switcheroo on everybody and you're like, I'm coming back. I said, that was such a Coach Mac move. I love that. I laughed so hard that day. I was like, he got all of you. So great. You had everybody in the palm of your hand. But so what was it? Was it just because it was the round number, like if 50 years?
No. I've told the story a number of times. I've always, for 49 years, the season would end. The next day I was saying, we need a second baseman. We need this. We got to have a good fall and develop some, whatever. My brain just worked that way. I was thinking of the next year. And this year we started fall. And we were on the field the first day. The kids were stretching, and I was standing there, and this thought came in my mind, and something said, almost a voice said, you're done. This is it. This is your last year. And I didn't pay mind, and a couple of minutes later, we were starting practice, and a thought came into my mind, too, that it's over. And Jay, I swear I remember doing it. I kind of swatted. I said, like, get out of here. I've never had that thought enter my mind. It was weird. I let a week or so go by. We started playing fall games. I'm sitting on the bucket instead of being into the game, thinking about strategy and things. These thoughts kept going in my mind. This is it. And it never went away. And so I guess right before Christmas, I met with my family, let them know. They were shocked. And a lot of people said, well, you did 50 years. That's what was your goal. And I go, no, 2 or 3 years ago, I was hoping to do 52, 53. Yeah. I was never thinking of getting out. It was the weirdest thing. And it just stayed there. And there were other factors. We got 3 grandchildren. They're involved in activities. And I've missed a thing or two. We got a 10-year-old, a 7, and a 6. And I've already missed some things. And when I met with my family to tell them that this was it, I apologized to Anthony and my daughter Gina and said, look, I should have been a better dad. I missed a lot I was late to birthdays. I've got nieces and nephews still today that get on me because I was late to their wedding or didn't go to the reception because I had a game. And I don't want to live with that again with the grandchildren. So that was a big part of it too. But I think the bottom line, Jay, it was just time. It was just time.
They say when you know, right?
Yeah, and I've always heard that, and I really believe it now. I mean, it was just unconscious the way something kept telling me. And I fought it for a while, the whole fall. Right. I said, this will go away, and I'll go another few years, but it didn't go away. And since then, I went through a period after announcing it to my family, the principal, and the team. I had a few days that I go, what the heck did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
I want to stay here,
Yeah.
But it took a few days, and I'm at ease with it. I'm at peace with it. And no bitterness. I would do it again. I loved it. I felt blessed to do. I knew that I wanted to coach in like the 8th grade when I was in middle school. I had some great coaches. Back then, athletics were really big in middle school.
Right.
We had some coaches. We played football, basketball, ran track. And when they'd go to lunch, I'd go in their office, put the hat on, put the whistle around my neck, put my feet up on their desk like they sat. And I go, I want to be a coach. I want to be a coach. So it all worked out. And going back to, where I graduated from as an alumni, I couldn't ask for better.
Well, Coach, if we know anything about Pop Cuesta and Jefferson, I mean, he's still got the keys. He's still walking in and out of the dugout. So even if you don't go back, even if you stay with this decision, you're always going to be welcome back at King, and I'm sure every single high school in the Tampa Bay area.
I appreciate it.
I can't express my gratitude, and I'm so lucky to be able to call you a friend. And coaching against you was one of my highlights of my career, of my life. And knowing that you coached a lot of my good friends and Criswell and Kibler and Knopfsinger, I still apologize that you had to coach Billy Knopfsinger. But yeah, I mean, the first thing I ever coached was as a guest coach at St. Leo. And I still have the King shirt. Actually, my brother stole it from me because he thinks it's like the coolest shirt of all time. Back in the early 2010s, the head coach and the assistants couldn't coach St. Leo. You had to bring in a guest. And that was when Tag brought me in, and I was like, this is amazing. And you got the bug started for me coaching high school baseball. And like I said, regardless of all that, man, you have become such a good friend. And I'm just so happy for you, Jim. I really am. You're on the Mount Rushmore of high school baseball coaches in this area. You made our community so much better and helped so many young athletes in Tampa be able to achieve their dreams and to be able to play baseball. And I'm just so grateful for you. And thank you on behalf of our entire community for all that you've done. I wish you all the success. I hope it culminates with a solid. And I'm sorry, Eric Beatty and all these other coaches that I love, but I'm pulling for King this weekend. And I hope this season ends with a state championship. I love you and I miss you. And I'll see you probably sometime this week, my friend. But thank you so much for your time today. Give my love to Anthony and the family. And we'll talk to you again soon, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
See you, pal. Good stuff. The one and only Jim Macaluso, King High baseball coach. God, man, he's the man. He's the man. And to think about how many lives that Coach Mac has impacted over the years, right? I mean, a bunch of my friends that I grew up, I didn't grow up with. I moved here when I was 20. But to be able to play ball with, play in some men's league, play some softball with guys that played for King, playing with guys and coaching with, Marlon Williams, Derek Bell's brother, and Cody White, and some of these phenomenal athletes that have come from the Tampa Bay area. And I'm going to find that picture. I got to post it on my social media because that picture with Coach Mac, Coach Pop Cuesta, and the late, great Frank Permui, I mean, those are legends here in the Tampa Bay area. Think about how many professional athletes, how many major league players that those three guys were able to coach. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to meet the late, great Billy Reed from Hillsborough. That's what everybody kept saying. Man, I wish you were around. I wish you could meet Billy Reed because that was the one guy that you never met. And then now you see it now. You see like the next generation. You see Coach Nelson North at Gaither, and you see Londi Faedo at Alonzo. There's just so many great coaches and so many great leaders of young men in our community that it's important. And that's the reason why I have this podcast, right? when we have an opportunity to do things like this, we want to shine a light on teams, on players, on coaches, on people in the sports world that positively impact the people that, we go to the store with, right? Our kids play together, right? They go to school together. So it's important to make sure that what all you guys know, the Jay Recher podcast, this is what we're all about. And I'm sure that a lot of you know, but we're going to continue to do this. Of course, we're going to highlight some of the big news when it comes to around the country, but we're always going to start just building like every good football team should. Start from the inside and build out. So that's why when you look at our guest list, right, that's the type of people we're going to have. We're going to have Coach Jim Macaluso on the program, the living legend. And we're going to continue the good local vibes going. And we're going to bring in the head basketball coach of our UT men's basketball team, Linc Donner. What's going on, Coach? Thanks so much for joining us. I know you're busy getting ready for the big game tomorrow. Appreciate you joining us. How you doing on this Friday?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. An exciting time right now for our guys and our staff. It's been 11 years, I believe, since Tampa's played in the NCAA tournament. And for our guys to get us back here, what a great job they did, especially at the end of the year, winning 5 in a row regular season and then winning our first conference tournament game on the road. And then, we lost to Nova, but I don't think that hurt us any as far as the selection went. But, just really excited. We're down here. We just got done with practice and, we're ready to go for tomorrow.
Coach, and I ask a lot of coaches this, when you're able to do things that you haven't been able to do as a program, and I know you haven't been there for the entire decade plus, but when did you know this season that this team had a chance to kind of, all right, like we got a chance to really do something? Was it a practice? Was it a game? Was it a certain moment that a player had? Like, at what point did you know that this team was something special?
Well, I think it was when we started the year. We started out, we started 6-0, and then we lost probably our best all-around player, and we call him B. Will, and Brian Williams. He went down with a fractured orbital and was out for 6 weeks. And during that time, we went 4-5, and we lost 3 of those games at the buzzer without him. And we thought, okay, we get him back. If we can get him back, get in the swing of things, we have a chance. We thought at that time we were as good as anybody before he went down. We played a Claflin team that was very good. I think they ended up winning 18 games. They had played Lincoln Memorial a couple days before us, and Lincoln Memorial is one of the top 10 teams in the country, and they lost by 6. We beat them by 30 at our place and played extremely well. And at that time, you were thinking, okay, we got a chance to be really, really good here. And then you have the injury. He goes down, he comes back, and we get on a little bit of roll, and then we hit a tough slide there. And then you started wondering, now we got beat at Rollins. It was our 4th loss in a row. Can we get this thing turned around? Are we going to win another game? And, our guys came back after the Rollins game, and we put together 5 in a row that got us into this position we're in today.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, too, about UT athletics. I'm really good friends with Coach Bush and Coach Urso. I mean, when you go to a place like UT and you see the standards and you see like, hey, was that a challenge at all? Like, was that something that was on your mind when you're able to come to UT? Like, hey, there's a model of success in some of the other athletic programs. I want to get there because, Coach, right here, man, everybody's like, all right, UT men's basketball, man, let's go, baby. Like, get on the train, man. Let's get a national championship here too.
Well, I think I spent 9 years in the league at Florida Southern, and I joke all the time whenever we picked up a recruit at the Tampa airport and we drove by downtown, we never pointed that there's a University of Tampa, because I didn't want those guys saying, boy, I want to get recruited by them. I'm going to call their coaches, because I thought it could be as good a job as any in the league. And I still believe that. And that's one thing that interests me in this job, and the success of all the other programs. The standard that they have set here, the other coaches winning national championships, competing at a high level. That's one thing as a coach that you want. And that's the one thing that we've done since we got here from day one, is stressed about, competing at the national level, winning the Sunshine State Conference, getting in the NCAA tournament, and making a run at it like all the other teams do. I mean, baseball and women's volleyball, our women's basketball team, our women's lacrosse team, our men's lacrosse. I mean, they're all ranked up in the top 5-10 in the country. Softball, I think, is number 1 in the country right now. And that's a great place to work, where the standard is high and everybody expects to win. And, we're trying to get there with the other programs at the University of Tampa.
Yeah, you're doing such a phenomenal job. And just looking at some of your background, I always do my homework on my guests, and seeing where you came in from in your playing days. One of my dad's favorite players watching the 90s was the Big Dog, right? And it's just, you always look at players and you wonder, okay, what is their next step? How are they going to stay in the game? You were a captain there at Purdue. Did you know? And I think it's maybe low hanging fruit, and because I was a captain too growing up, and my people always said, you're going to be a coach. And I coached baseball for 8 years before I ever got into radio. Was it the same thing for you? Did you have that coaching bug when you were still playing? Or was that one of those things where like, I'm going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off and then we'll worry about the career after that?
Well, I think I always had the coaching bug. My dad was a high school coach in Indiana. And if you grew up in Indiana and know about Indiana basketball in the late 80s and early 90s, I mean, playing in front of 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 every game. So I always wanted to be a coach. I knew I didn't want to get into the high school. If I wanted to do it, I wanted to go to the college route. I think I knew the game when I played back in 90 to 94, the 3-point line wasn't a huge thing.
Right.
It was more about getting the ball inside, and teams played a lot of pack line and zone defenses, and teams didn't shoot a ton of threes. The game's changed. Now, I was born in the wrong era, but I knew I didn't have a professional career. I probably could have went overseas and played a couple years, but I wanted to get into coaching. I was very fortunate. I had a couple classes that I had taken the summer, and one of our assistant coaches at Purdue, Jay Price, came up and said, why don't you stay around and be a student assistant next year? Hold those classes off and stay another year. And I went and talked to Coach Katie, and he thought it was a great idea. So I had a couple classes I had to take. I spread them out over 2 semesters. He let me become a student assistant. And the great thing is, he let me get involved. I just didn't stand on the sideline and not do anything. He let me do things. Coach Weber was an assistant at the time, who then went on to coach at Illinois. And, I was able to, get out there and help with drills and do different things. And I think the great thing was that I played at that time. So, the players would listen to me when I would give them advice and everything. And then from there, I got, the opportunity to go to Murray State, and I bounced around as an assistant and, became a head coach at a school out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And, it's funny that, I had Coach Katie call for me, and I knew Pat Knight. And Pat was always like, my dad will help you. My dad would help you. And the AD at the time, Bill Mossels, was a huge IU fan. And the other guy I was in the running worked with Steve Alford. So I had a trump Steve Alford, and I called Pat, and, Coach Knight called for me. And I think that's probably what won me the job, is I out-trumped the next guy for the job, and spent 4 years there and turned the program into a national power. My last year there, we went 31-3. And then I got the opportunity to come down here to Florida Southern and then to Green Bay, and very fortunate to be at Tampa now.
Crushing it, Coach. You're doing such a great job. And, looking at how this team has been able to, like you said, when B. Will went down with that fractured orbital. And I think you go through some of those tough games sometimes. And yeah, if you just look at, and that's the great thing about sports, right? Because you look at when he goes down, you look at the record, like, maybe they're not from the outside, maybe they're not as good as I think you learn some of your most important lessons during those games, right? All right. If he's not here to take the last shot, who's going to be able to step up? Who's going to be able to fill in the gaps, points, assists, rebounds? Who's going to be able to defend the best player on the other team? What have you learned about specific players through some of the ups and downs of this season as we about to, embark on the big game tomorrow?
Well, I think we had different guys step up at different times. Amarion and Ryan, filled in and produced scoring when B. Will was out. Trey Lane, he was the starting point guard, and he had to play a little bit more at the point. BJ, a freshman, got thrown into the fire as a backup point guard, which, gained him valuable experience. And the thing I'm hoping is we lost, I believe it was 3 games at shots at the buzzer. And I kept telling our guys, it's gonna change. We're going to get into a game where we're going to have the lead and the team's going to miss the shot at the buzzer. Mm-hmm. I hope that's this week. We're due to win one of those games, but I think too, it taught guys that had to make plays that weren't used to making plays. And we said that as a staff, it's different when you've been in this situation and you've won before, and guys have been in this situation to make plays to win. We had to look at our team and say, really, we've never been in this situation. Even a year ago, we really weren't in it. where it's coming down to where we got to get the ball in bounds. We got to execute. We got to make free throws. And I think maybe having a little failure with that is now we understand what we need to do. And hopefully it'll help us if we get put in that situation. And hopefully the team we're due for somebody to miss a game winner against us.
Hey, the flip side, coach. Maybe you
That's
guys
right.
are making the
Play
shot,
odds,
right? You're right. Those last 60 minutes in a basketball game could turn into what it seems like 2 hours, because it's every single, from inbounding the ball, right, to getting it over a midcourt. Like, there's just so many different little aspects of the game that you got to take care of. Because I say this, dating back to my days, is it always comes down to the little things, regardless of what sport it is. If you do the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. Before I let you go, what's the big challenge? I mean, obviously you're facing a really good team tomorrow. They've only had one loss all year long, but I mean, what do you got to do to make it 2?
Well, I think the big thing is we got to go in and understand the pressure is all on them. We don't have pressure. Like, they're the number 3 team in the country. If it wasn't done by regionals and Division II, which is a bad thing, they would be a number 1 seed. I know a lot of people are talking about them. That Huntsville's good enough to win the national championship. We got to make open shots. We got to defend really good. They got really, really good guards. They got a 7-footer inside that we got to keep away from the basket. And we got to rebound the basketball. If we can rebound with them and we can score in transition and make open shots, I think we got a great shot at knocking them off and pulling one of the biggest upsets in Division II basketball.
Oh, I can't wait, Coach. Definitely be tuned in tomorrow. Coach Linc Darner, UT men's basketball. Man, I'm so excited for this game. I mean, there's a lot that I think when you're looking at University of Tampa sports and you're talking about men's basketball, and we saw it on the USF side last year with Coach Amir Abdur-Rahim, like, Tampa does love their hoops, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And as much as South Florida is a part of it, our Tampa Spartans are a huge part of it as well. 2:30 tomorrow against Alabama Huntsville. We'll all be locked in. Coach, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. I wish you the best of luck. Again, I know you're busy as heck. So for you to take some time to chat with me today before the big game tomorrow, super grateful. Thank you very much. Good luck, my friend, and we'll talk soon. All right, go get that win. Go get that
Thanks
win.
for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Good stuff. Hey, Coach Linc Darner, listen, man, this is what's great about sports, man. 1 loss for Alabama Huntsville. How about 2? How about 2? Tampa Spartans tomorrow, baby. 2:30. Cannot wait. I'll be calling a game, but I got the game on my laptop. I'm a multifaceted guy. You know me. It doesn't matter. I'll be able to watch multiple games. I can't wait for Tampa to be able to do their thing. A big thank you to assistant coach Justin Pecca for setting that up. Yeah, it's been a great show. It's been a great week, even though I haven't felt so great. I'm still not 100%. My knee is still jacked up, but it is what it is. All right, so yeah, I'm on the call this weekend, today and tomorrow. Let me make sure that I have the right times here. I know today, USF Maryland, 6:30. It's alumni weekend, celebrating 60 seasons of USF baseball. First 500 people get a 60th season anniversary t-shirt. Go check it out. ESPN Plus today at 6:30. Tomorrow's game is at 2 o'clock, also celebrating 60 seasons. Then Sunday at 1 o'clock, I'll be on the radio side. Bark in the Park. You can bring your dogs to the park. Kids run the bases post-game. That is how we roll. It's USF baseball. Shout out to everybody that joined us on the program today. Evan Closky, Erik Erlendsson, Coach Jim Macaluso. And how about Coach Linc, man? I love the name Linc Darner. That's a pretty badass name, Linc Darner. But yeah, that's how we roll here on the Jay Recher podcast. Good stuff as always. Follow me on all social media platforms at Jay Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Let's get those followers, get those listens up as high as they possibly can. I'm going to go get changed. I'm going to go get ready. I got to head over to USF because the Bulls take on the Maryland Terrapins. I love you all. Lightning need to get a win in Boston. Please beat the Bruins. Please do that. But again, I appreciate all the love and support. You guys have done a great job. As always, let's keep this thing rolling. We'll be back on Monday. Ian Beckel's going to join us and talk to the USF. We'll probably talk to Carla Brito and Jose Fernandez next week. And then we got the Valspar as well. So everybody have a safe, a happy, a healthy weekend. We'll see you on Monday right here on the